Welcome back. You're watching 101. We're talking with Dr. Hanan Ashrawi. Now, Dr. Ashrawi, your activism actually started at an early age. You were at Jazeera University, I think, in 1974 when it first all started. The students were up in arms and there was Israeli crackdowns and everything else. Describe those times. I know you went through some pretty traumatic incidents there.
Well, actually, my activism started before I even knew it was activism. When my father ran for office and there were demonstrations and so on, when Glab Pasha was removed from the Jordanian army and we had demonstrations. All we knew was that, you know, we got all dressed up, and I wrote about this, putting ribbons in our hair and going out to demonstrate without knowing why. But no, it was actually in 1967 that I became a real activist. And with the war and the loss of the West Bank, the occupation of the West Bank and Gaza, and my inability to go back home. And I decided that it is my problem, and I had to do something about it. And I did join the General Union of Palestine Students, and I ran for elections and so on. So that was the first time I ran for elections. I was the first elected woman member of GAPS in Lebanon. But anyway, it went on. My work in Birzeit University was both academic, in terms of setting up the English department and later becoming the dean, the Faculty of Arts, and trying to do my own research and so on. And at the same time, it was quite activist in the sense that I was responsible for the students who themselves were so vulnerable and subject to incursions and attack and so on. And I know whenever there were protests, I set up the faculty, and I would set up first aid stations.
You're literally taking bleeding students from A to B and so on.
Yes, I said it was never in my plan as an academic to cradle the head of a dying student. I mean, it was horrible to see a student, you know, sort of shot and wounded, and you could do nothing about it. But I also managed to, I participated in the protests and the marches. I wasn't just a bystander. And at the same time, I did take wounded students to hospital, and I did manage to drive through checkpoints and barricades and so on. So it was a life that was fraught, not just with activism, but with insecurity and with the unpredictable. You never knew what could happen next. It was something that was imposed on you just by the mere fact that you were a Palestinian living in Palestine.
You went obviously more mainstream, into more mainstream Palestinian politics a little later. And I wonder, what was your relationship like with Yasser Arafat?
That was a very interesting relationship with Yasser Arafat. I've always said there was mutual respect, and yet there were real disagreements. We've managed to get to the point where we could talk to each other with candor and even discuss issues of disagreement without losing the respect and the humanity that dominated this relationship. It was very, very strange.
Because initially you used to have to go and sort of meet him in Tunis, and it was sort of secretly, and it was then eventually all came out in 1992, and you sort of said, no, I actually am going and seeing him.
Yeah,
and it was a bit of a sort of cathartic
it was illegal because under occupation, the Israelis made it illegal for the Palestinians to have anything to do with the PLO. And you could be, and you were accused and put in jail if you had anything to do with the PLO. So we used to travel in secret to see them, and it was something that was never declared. And only with the peace process, because we were the ones who really took the initiative for peace. We started in the late 80s talking about the peace initiative, and then in 91 we went to Madrid with the International Peace Conference. And we explored all options, of course, with the Americans and the international community. And it was then that we decided it is time to come out in the open and legitimize the PLO and gain it international acceptance. And we did that.
Now, you're also involved in a number of key issues affecting the Palestinian situation. For example, you know, you became the official spokesperson of the Palestinian delegation to the Middle East peace process, and later Minister of Higher Education in the Palestinian Authority. It was about a decade ago. But you resigned. You were there in 1996, resigned in 1998 over those differences.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering how that sort of complicated, A, your relationship with Yasser Arafat, but also what you were able to do in terms of your cause.
Yes, well, I've always seen my role as working within civil society. and not within a sort of government context. We never had a government all these years. We all worked on a voluntary basis in NGOs and civil society institutions, and I felt that this is where I belonged. When the first authority was established, I was in the leadership committee and the spokesperson and so on, and I was in Tunis with the PLO, and Yasser Arafat asked me to join it, and I refused. And I said, I'm going to set up institutions. And he said, what? And I said, the first institution. And I made him sign the decree to give it legal existence. It was called the Palestinian Independent Commission for Citizens' Rights. I said, you're going to form a government, bring in people who have had no experience in governance and accountability and serious responsibility, and I'm going to create the sort of watchdog authority until we have elections and have a legislative body or a parliament. So we established the Independent Commission for Citizens' Rights, and it started functioning. Unfortunately, it is still functioning. So I've been building institutions, and I've been looking forward to what is needed to build a democratic, contemporary Palestine that would be able to survive and to serve its citizens well. I joined the government only after I was elected for the PLC, because I didn't want to be appointed or to be beholden to anybody. And I gained my legitimacy from being elected.
And of course you have legitimacy because you always speak your mind.
I do.
Which is
That's not
obviously
always
is admirable,
comfortable.
especially in that part of the world. And I remember in 1998 when you quit, because I think I interviewed you very soon afterwards, and I remember you were very angry at the time with the way
Yes.
things went. I mean, to what extent do you feel things were taking a big step backwards?
Yes, I felt that there was a violation of trust, in a sense. And this is something we warned against from the beginning, that if you are, the nation-building process and the peacemaking process are two interdependent processes. And neither one can be flawed, but to be able to make peace, you need to build a nation and a state along democratic and human means and legal means with the rule of law and so on. And you had to have a viable substantive peace process that would end the occupation. Both were facing difficulty, but at least under our control was the nation-building process. I was very upset with the lack of accountability, with the corruption, with human rights violations, and with the lack of respect for the rule of law, abuse of power and position. And so I worked very hard to change this from within. But when I saw that the next government was formed with the same old people and just adding more voices, I told Yasser Arafat, do not count me in. I didn't resign. I refused my reappointment. So I said, I respectfully decline now. It became public because he insisted on announcing my name. I insisted on rejecting. We have a joke that I was always the most reluctant minister. Probably somebody who never wanted public position. But at the same time, I told him I will accept once he shows that he is serious about, first of all, shaping the agenda and having me part of shaping the agenda with other women and with like-minded people, and putting together a team of credible, responsible, professional people who could do the work.
Do you realistically expect to see some solution to the situation for the Palestinian people in your lifetime? Something long-term, lasting, I mean, really permanent?
I've always been convinced that I would, and that I would be instrumental in bringing about this solution, frankly, in all modesty. But I think right now I'm beginning to be much more skeptical. The situation is very tragic. There is a lack of involvement, a lack of political will, sense of responsibility in terms of the international community. And what's happening within Palestine is quite alarming, because I call it the deconstruction of Palestine is taking place systematically before everybody's eyes. The loss of land, the loss of institutions, even internally the loss of cohesion. These are things that are really threatening the survival of Palestine. I think there will be a resolution. There has to be one. This is a case of tremendous injustice, and it has to be resolved, and it will be. But whether it will happen in my lifetime or not, and whether I will have an impact in how it comes about, these remain open questions.
We've established in the last half hour that you've devoted pretty much most of your life to the cause of the Palestinian people, your family before you too. What, if you could do something, what is it that you would like to achieve in your own lifetime for yourself that you haven't had a chance to?
I don't know if I can go back and say I want to teach some more. I want to go back to my academic setting. I want to have time to write. I haven't written as much. I always books in my mind and things that I want to write, and I haven't had the time to sit down and make them emerge as finished, not just literary works or scholarly works, but even
something for you.
Something that would be an expression of me. I would like now, frankly, to spend more time with my family. I have a grandson, and that has been another epiphany in my life, and I want to spend more time with him. And I want to be able to have the luxury of some sort of an ordinary life.
How would you like to be remembered?
Perhaps as a human being, basically, as somebody who has lived her life in an active, not a passive way, who has tried to make a difference, who has brought peace a bit closer to reality, who has managed to live in accordance with her values and principles, and to touch the lives of a few others.
Dr. Ashrawi, God bless. Wish you luck with that.
Thank you very much. Great to see you, Riz.